Hi, I'm Bill Sanders, and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to talk about is it's called the Grand Prix de Horlogerie de Genève. What this is, it's an annual contest that is open to all watchmakers, not just Geneva or not just Switzerland, but from all over the world. And the prizes that they give are something like the Academy Award, and they're very valuable in the sense that they're one objective measure of the quality of a watch or a watch brand. So this is what we're going to be taking a look at today. Now, to get started, download the link. What I did, I took all of the prizes for all of the 15 years from 2001 to 2015 and put them on a sheet so you can take a look at them. The reason I did this is that I ran into an article in a magazine, and it purported to show what the winners were. Well, the only winners that they showed were the ones who had taken out advertising space in their magazine. But the way they presented it was like, oh, well, this is everybody, but it's not. So what you have here is that if you want to judge the quality of a watch in terms of its value and you might even say its goodness, this is a good list to use. They're judged by watchmakers from all over the world, journalists, people who write about watches, people who make them, designers. There's a very, very high quality judgment involved here. So when you get into an argument, my watch is better than yours or something like that, and I can't imagine any watch collectors ever doing that, but that happens. Well, you can say, well, let's take a look at this list, and we'll see which watches have won what awards or not. Okay, so the first thing that I want to take a look at, now, and like I said, be sure to download that sheet. It's a PDF file. It's got everything you need to know. It's 19 pages long, so it's fairly complete. All right, now what I want to start with are what are called the grand prize winners. It's called the Aiguille d'Or Grand Prize, or Grand Prix. And so who won these things? Well, the very first one was won back in 2001 by Vacheron Constantin with a watch called Lady Kala. Now, this is an interesting thing because women's watches were included in the contest. But the only ones that have been included, at least as far as I know, are ones that have mechanical movements. Lady Kala had a wind-up movement, and it's a really nice watch. Problem was, it cost between $500,000 and $800,000. That's an expensive watch. Well, the next year, Patek Philippe came along, and they won. Again, this is so far, no big surprises here. Their watch, that nice little rectangular watch, it sells for $300,000. Well, that's still a lot of money. My little Calatrava here isn't anywhere near that much. So the next year after, Patek won 2 years in a row. Then Vacheron Constantin came back with a watch, fabulous watch, but they only made 7 of them, and each one cost $1.5 million a piece. All right, again, out of my level of bankroll. After that, now here, this is an economy watch by a company called F.P. Zurn. And F.P. Zurn, I really didn't know anything about them until I started looking at, they had won more grand prizes than any other company. Both Vacheron and Patek Philippe had won 2. FP Journe had won 3, so it's really somewhat. And it was only $62,000, a steal. Some of the other ones that won, Tag Heuer won, but the watch they had isn't the one that I've seen down at, it's got the ETA Bosch in it. It was $150,000. Girard-Perregaux won. And in fact, I think I've mentioned this before, but my overseas one has a base of a Girard-Perregaux 3100. Well, this Girard-Perregaux sells for $124,000. Another example is Brigade, and Brigade is a nice watch. They've been around a long time. 39,000. A little more in the the blast space, but that's about it. Finally, in 2015, the latest one was by a company called Girard-Perregaux, and it sells for $290,000. All right, that is, these things are fine. It'll tell you something about the watch companies that are involved in this. But as most people who begin collecting watches know, is that one of the major brands is Rolex, and there's not a single Rolex in the whole lot. Now, a few years ago, Patek Philippe decided they didn't want the Geneva hallmark for various reasons, and so they made their own hallmark. And I thought, well, maybe this is what Rolex did. But it wasn't that way at all. In fact, Rolex is a big supporter of the Grand Prix Orologie de Genève. So they support it financially and everything else. But they didn't put anybody in the they didn't put any of their watches in the contest. And I was wondering why. Well, I found an article in the London Financial Times that seemed to explain it pretty well. It says, what does Rolex have to lose? I mean, to win. They have a lot to lose, but not a lot to win. If they win, people figured, well, that's Rolex. That's what we expected. And they didn't put anything. If they did put something in and they lost, they would be like, oh, well, Rolex isn't as good as we thought. So they just don't enter. But what they did was sort of interesting. There's a company called Tudor that in 1946 joined, that became part of Rolex. So you have Rolex Tudors, and a lot of people see it as sort of the younger brother or the younger sister. And so what they did, they put in Tudors. It's sort of like the beauty queen's goofy-looking sister got put into the beauty contest and won. And this is what happened with the Tudor. Not only did it win once, it won twice. And it was a very interesting watch that they had. It was a revival watch. Now, what that meant was that they were taking a watch back that was popular back in the 50s and updating it. Well, they did that. They had they used an ETA Bosch in it with even the same number as they gave it a Tudor number, which was the same as the ETA number, and they worked on it somewhat, and they produced this absolutely cool looking watch. It was like the original but different, and it's a wonderful watch, and it was selling for about $3,000. And so, like, wow, that's pretty good. I've seen watches a lot more than that had ETA Bosches in it. And then in 2016, what they did is that this is where I think the ETA pulling Ibosches away from watch companies that aren't part of the Swatch Group is a good thing, because now there is an MT movement, which is manufactured Tudor. So now they have a Tudor manufactured movement, a caliber. So that's a neat little watch. In fact, that's a watch I'd like to get if I can. I'm not much into sports watches, but that is one I'd like. Don't go out and buy a bunch of them because they're award-winning watches and they're a good deal, because I want to get one pretty soon. Okay, some other watches that I found they're very interesting. There was this company I'd never heard of before called Harboring 2. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone I'd never heard of won for some odd one, but they won 3 times. And so I wanted to find out about it. It turns out Harboring 2 is a very, very interesting little company. It's, first of all, it's not Swiss, it's Austrian. And the two is because they're two Harborings who happen to be husband and wife. They're both watchmakers. He is considered to be a really outstanding watchmaker. He worked for, I believe, IWC and did some work for A. Lang & Son, and solved some very interesting problems for them. And then he and his wife said, well, let's start our own watch company. They only make like 150 watches a year, and they won 3 of the Grand Prix awards. It's really amazing. One of the awards is called let me see, I got it right here. It's called the Petite Aiguille. And the Petite Aiguille is one I'm really glad that they added, because what it does, it put in watches that were under 8,000 Swiss francs, which is about $8,000, a little under 8,000 euro, around a little over 5,000 pounds. And so it's still not cheap. I mean, $8,000 for a watch is a lot of money. But, what the Harboring did is that Harboring has all of its watches at that. They wanted to make really excellent watches at a reasonable price, and they did it. And then they won awards for doing it, which is really neat. Another interesting watch that everyone knows about the Omega Man on the Moon, and it's a collector's favorite. Now, the original, I think it was a caliber number 312 on the Omega Man on the Moon. That was the first watch to go to the moon. Now, what Omega decided to do was to come out with a watch called the Dark Side of the Moon. And so Omega had one called the Dark Side of the Moon. It has its own CSOC certified movement, and it's an Omega manufactured movement. It's not a outsider movement. And they won. They won one of the awards. I think it was for a sports watch, and it's called the Dark Side of the Moon. Now, I've heard people say, "Oh, well, the Dark Side of the Moon is not the same as the Man on the Moon." Probably not, but it won one of these, like the Academy Award of watches. So, in looking at this, I think what it does, it gives you a fresh insight. And these are judged by people who really know what they're talking about, not like some watch collector who loves his, in my case, everything, but that, oh boy, I have my Audemars Piguet, and I love Audemars Piguets, and if it's not an Audemars Piguet, it's no good. Well, I do have an Audemars Piguet, and I do like it, but it really opens up, I think, to a lot more really good horological development, and I look forward to it. So go ahead, be sure to download the list of all of the winners. You can see all of the watch companies involved. The ones that we had up here on the screen, it showed you, but pretty quickly. And this way you can look at them, and you can look up some interesting watches. And I'll be sure to leave some comments about, what do you think about it? What do you think about Rolex? Why didn't Rolex enter it? Sitting out their goofy looking sister who wins the beauty contest. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you later. Hit the subscribe button. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders with WatchArtSci. Bye-bye.